Our firstborn Zeke was not even 1 when we first moved to Angola. And then the next time we came back, Zeke was just turned 4, and Eliel was 1.5, and Naomi was still several months old. So they've grown up here, and coming back here was coming back home when we returned.
It's an extraordinary place that we are at, but I don't think our lives, that we're living an extraordinary life. I think we're just doing the work that God has prepared for us in advance to do. So, yeah. And so we are here to love people, but also we are here and we continue being here, not because I think out of our strength, but knowing that God is walking with us and that we are together.
The normal life is just going through life trying to find my own comfort. I would say this is not that. And I'm just trying to find a life for myself and for my family where we can discover our purpose, that there is something more than ourselves, more to than just self-fulfillment. Then I think that in that way we are living the life that I would hope.
We're going to Chitutu Clinic. We're about close to 90 kilometers from Kalakembe Hospital where we're going. I try and make it out there once a month. When Priscilla comes, also we try and do ultrasound outreaches and prenatal care visits. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from Kalakembe Hospital through a few muddy lakes.
Tutu is one of the over 20 clinics that IESA has in a rural area. Most of the clinics that IESA runs are in rural parts of Huila and Benguela provinces, where again the majority of the population also live in rural areas. And it's one of the clinics that I visit, as well as Priscilla sometimes, on a monthly to bi-monthly basis. I think in the big picture way, what keeps me here is knowing that I really do feel like I have a purpose of being here and testifying to what God is doing in Kalukembe and how God is blessing this community.
I think that we're in an extraordinary place, working with other extraordinary people and doing the work that God has for us. But I think that's what God calls us all to do, wherever it is, you know, whether it's in Philly or here. We're going to bring a kid, a small child. He's about 3 years old, and he came in not feeling well with fevers, and so then Daniel evaluated him, and Celestino was the lab technician who then did the analysis, and the malaria smear was positive, and his hemoglobin is 5. Because of these results and because of the work in this community that our colleagues are doing, we're able to know what the problem with this child is, and then with our ambulance driver to take him to the hospital where he can get treatment. And I think the mom and some of the family members are in here. So he's been sick for 3 days. So it was really such a very providential that we were able to come now and that we can take the child with us. On Monday morning on maternity, we went to go round, and there was a lady who had come in, who on Saturday had started on labor, so 3 days of labor. And she had been at home, and the baby hadn't come out, and the baby had died in her. And finally, part of the baby had come out, but not the whole thing. Her uterus had torn open, and her belly was full of dead baby, blood, and all kinds of bacteria. She was very sick, and we said we need to take the baby out. Her blood pressure was very low. She needs blood, she needs antibiotics, she needs IV access. And then with anesthesia, I was able to easily take out the baby, the rest of the baby. But as the baby came out, all of the gangrene and the dead tissue and all of the gas that had been in her stomach exploded out as the baby came out. Then I was able to go into her abdominal cavity. I could basically, touch any internal organs because the uterus had almost been torn totally off. But we were able to remove the placenta. She didn't bleed much, but she was obviously septic. And a few minutes later, as we were planning to open up her abdomen to then assess her uterine rupture, the anesthetist noticed that she wasn't breathing, she didn't have a pulse. We tried to intubate, we tried to do some chest compressions, but it turned out she had a cardiac arrest. And by the time we tried to resuscitate her, she was cold and dead. She had 10 living children, all of which were left behind. And it's something that we see probably a couple times a month or more. We'll have maternal death for a variety of reasons. My mom is a family physician, and she had told me a long time ago when I decided to do obstetrics, she's like, it is the happiest but also the saddest specialty, where you have the most joy and also the most tears. Oftentimes you have a chance to save the baby, and if you don't, then you can try and save the mama. And so we often have still a silver lining in our obstetrical care. It's something tragic, and it's something that We don't want to continue happening. Now we don't want to just be here to help resuscitate. We want to be here and prevent these things from happening.
These the conditions that we work in and our colleagues work in every day, being limited, in some ways it's harder for us coming from the outside, but we know some things that wouldn't happen where we work in the States. We see many more children dying here than I ever have in my work in the States. There's just many more happy outcomes there, and then here we have more experience with sad outcomes. Our staff do too, and I think that one of the challenges is just fatalism. I think that our colleagues often struggle or live in a way that they think that this is the way it is. I have a hard time seeing that. I have a hard time seeing the world as just this is the way it is. The other hard part is that sometimes we feel like these kinds of cases keep coming like at a fire hydrant in the mouth or in the face kind of pace. And that can be hard to sit back and reflect. Sometimes it's just getting cold about it, or I guess calloused, but also sometimes it can get overwhelming thinking about the cases. Those are hard cases, yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking about one even, a child who died yesterday, so same kind of thing, you know, delayed, prolonged, waiting at home, whatever conditions, whatever reasons, there was a delay in coming, and by the time I saw the child to transfer him to the ICU, he was too late to get an operation, and he died just within minutes of getting to the intensive care. So, yeah, it's hard. There's no way around it, but it's also one of the reasons why we're here. We want to walk with our patients. We want to meet them where they are in their moment of need, and sometimes it's believing that there will be a good result, and it's also knowing though that there can be bad results too. I think that the part that brings me hope or keeps me going is that I really do believe, and I have to keep thinking about a God who fulfills his promises. We're not expected to carry these burdens on our own shoulders, and I don't pretend like I could. It's good to share things with others and with the community, and to grieve with my wife sometimes. But it's also to take it to my God, who I believe listens about these things. I've never been able to shake the idea of, like, you know, there are people whose voices who haven't been heard and perhaps are outside of the mainstream of society, but yet those are the people that God talks about caring about. I want to see and be with the people he loves too. It's not easy, and I don't think it's always easy for my kids either. It requires reassessment too of what we're doing and why we do what we do. But for now, I think that we're in the right place. I just hope that that would always be a pursuit for our family, and I think it's important to me and to Priscilla as well that our kids are exposed to already living that it's not just a life that's poured into them, but that they can learn how to give of themselves to others. Part of it is just trusting that we are in the right place, knowing that I'm going to make mistakes and make bad decisions for our family too, but I accept that.
I'll tell you what, if you see a different company besides Toyota's, you're very lucky. They pick my nose when my mom is not here.
Eliel and Ezekiel both like to pick their nose, and now they try to do it in the bathroom. And sometimes he says, I'm not picking my boogers, I'm just scratching it, or I'm just touching it, or it's, blocking my nose, so I'm just clearing out, all of the trash that's in there.
I like to pick my nose. I look for area that my mom can't find them. And if you look, you can see some boogers there. Look, around the wall. Look right here. Look right there. Some of them hurt. Some of them got blood out. And my mom saw and slapped me and didn't do nothing. She just told me not to pick my nose anymore. She would slap my nose or pull my nose. But my mom is not here.
Eliel is 6, and Eliel identifies with all curly-haired lactose intolerant people.
He's also a bit more of an artist for the family. He enjoys drawing and any kind of creation of his own. He calls them machines. They're rather interesting types of machines that he will make. They may even be machines that make natural things such as apples.
He didn't draw people for the first couple of years, and now he's added them, but they're always these big constructions, and he loves creating things with tape and glue. And when we were in Philadelphia, he would walk the streets with his eyes glued on the sidewalk, looking for sidewalk trash or treasures. He has a very soft spot for Naomi.
Piggy's out. My name is Naomi, and I'm 5, and I live at Caloocan, but most of all, I like Philadelphia. And this helps me not be scared on night. It's like dragons, dinosaurs, a T-Rex. It makes them scare away because I don't like the song.
And then Naomi is our princess. She loves beauty and loves to pick the flowers around here, and even in Philadelphia, love to look at people's window decorations, Christmas, Halloween, any of those holidays around South Philly was really special for her.
Even in July, she's preparing for Christmas. She will sleep the longest, but as soon as she wakes up, if she's in a good mood, she'll ask, "Is it Christmas yet?" And, "Oh, can we decorate now, please?" Even before breakfast. She will walk all of Caloocan and search for flowers, and she will collect bunches of all the flowers. For her 5th birthday, instead of presents, people came with flower bouquets that they had picked from all around the area. And she was thrilled with that. She wants everyone to be kind to each other. She wants me to be kind to her and be a good mother, so she keeps reminding me about how to do that.
My name is Zeke. I'm 8. I'm born in the States. I'm growing up in Angola. I don't know for how long, but God willing, I'm gonna live here the rest of my life. The thing that I love most about Caloocan is guavas. I like to play soccer, and especially, I forgot to tell you this, playing in the rain. We have acacias. Acacias are nice. And I'll tell you what, I have been almost killed by a python. And then one of my friends called Shinky, he said, "Look it, a snake in Portuguese." And thankfully we had a machete with us. There's also rats and also and puff adders around here. Chameleons, especially chameleons. Army ants.
Zeke is the one with full of energy, wanting to rush out and go conquer things. So very excited to explore.
As soon as he hears stirrings of his siblings, then he'll go into lion attack mode, and he will often try and scare them or attack them in the morning. He's very competitive. He loves games, and he cries when he loses. And he has a very tender heart for animals and for little kids too.
I have had 46 pets in my lifetime. The rule of an animal becoming a pet, it has to at least last 2 days. Mike the Biter was one of my favorite pets. I only kept him for 2 days just so I could count him as a pet. I called him Mike the Biter because he bit me right here, if you can see that bite. Goldie was a fish. My dad accidentally killed him because he forgot to filter the water when we were changing his water. Buster's my cat, and I wonder where he is. And Reach was an owl. I named him after an owl in a book, and he died of dehydration, but he died with a piece of meat in his mouth. I think he was just dehydrated and we needed to give him water. So he died like that. But man, oh man, how he was. But he around the time that he died, he was just starting to become friends with Buster. Buster is I think Buster was my first pet, and he's still alive. I think that's enough.
That's enough.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for listening to my interview.
I think as a family, we have a lot of routines, or we have the Monday book on Mondays, and on Wednesdays, it's Science Wednesday, which it's Science Wednesday today. And so we do a science experiment, and then we watch a science video. And then on Friday, it's supposed to be Fun Friday Feast, where the kids make the meal. It's not always worked out.
Saturday morning dance-a-thon is an extremely important piece of our family life in Kalukembe, because without a Saturday morning dance-a-thon, somehow the week is incomplete.
I don't remember where exactly this came from. I thought it was Daniel's idea or one of the kids' ideas. But it's where after breakfast, we turn on the music really loud, open all the windows, and dance to things like Tupac or Mariah Carey. This is what I would like to dance to. And then the kids will dance to things like Muppet Treasure Island, and Daniel will dance to, I don't know, different musicians that I don't always know, but we'll break it down.
It's our way of expressing the joy of movement, I suppose. Yeah.
And it's just a time to physically let loose and just be joyful. And sometimes it's our time to practice breakdancing, which we all like to do, especially Zeke and Eliel.
We're still adapting. It's still a process. We are still looked on as the funny-looking people, which we are, being children who naturally enjoy exploring. Meeting other kids has not been any challenge around here where there are many children, and that has been an entry, as it were, an entry into the community.
I think one of the really neat opportunities here is that they get to talk to people of all different life experiences, have conversations and ask questions that maybe they wouldn't have in the States. Naomi, for example, whether in Philly or here, she still wants to dress beautifully. She will, for example, last week, she was in her princess dress, in her little high heels. She wears these in Philadelphia and she wears them here. The contrast is she'll wear them to doctor's appointments in the States or shopping. And here she wore the dress to watch the men butcher a goat. And then afterwards, we're going through our anatomy lesson and she's poking at the heart and the intestines. She's kneeled down gingerly around the intestines and she's like, oh, what is this? And she's mushing around the intestines. And it's so odd to see her there. But it's exactly who she is. And in some ways, that's one example of how our kids have maintained who they are, but also adapted very naturally to our realities here. I'm so glad to see that they're able to have that they aren't radically changing who they are because of our move here. It's just sort of solidifying and developing who they are.
We often will see children brought in here to our hospital in the advanced stages of malaria, where they're comatose, they're not responding. It most profoundly affects kids because they have not been exposed to the parasite in their lives yet, and so children can be very severely affected.
We had just moved to Angola, and we were at the hospital, and I saw a mom holding a little boy, and the little boy walked over to play with Ezekiel because Ezekiel was still a baby, and he was obviously a little bit agitated and was sort of bumping into things, and he was almost 2, so it was a little bit odd. And so I asked Daniel, who was walking by, asked him, well, what's wrong with this little boy? And he said, oh, well, the little boy is blind. He had cerebral malaria and was taken to the central hospital. They treated him, but not completely. And then his malaria worsened, and then he went blind from the malaria. And I had my healthy 2-year-old son and this other little boy, and I started just worrying more about my son and getting frustrated and angry thinking about this child who shouldn't be blind at 2 from malaria, and just wondering, God, why are we here? Do you really, I started having all my fears as a mother, coming down on my heart. What parent, who had a son would ever want their son to go into a difficult place to potentially get hurt, and die? Like, is that something you want from us? And then I went home and, for the next few days was wondering about this child and about my son and what were we doing in a place like this. But he does know what it was and what it is like to have a son who you love so much, who you gave, who went to a place, who was hurt and who died. And then it was for me a comfort, not because I thought that God was asking me to do that for my son, but knowing that I have a God who walks with us in our sufferings, and who knew what the suffering of this mother was, and who knows what the suffering of our other patients. So
it's often very heartbreaking to see. It's something that I often think, well, this is preventable through different public health measures, but we're in a country with many broken pieces to its public health puzzle. Some make it, some don't. And the ones that do pull through, it's always like a real delight and a joy for not just myself, especially for the family. And it's encouragement to just see the parents just looking more at peace and happier as they turn around. So it is pretty dramatic to see a kid who's seizing one day and then maybe a day or 2 later already up, sitting up, eating their breakfast. So yeah, it's a real, I don't know, it's kind of one of the reasons to come into work, right? To be able to see that, hey, there's something that they came for in their hour of need, and we were able to help them and see a good result. Yeah.
We don't often take our kids into the ICU. They go to the peds wards or maternity ward. But Ezekiel is 8, and he had asked to come along onto the ICU. And on bed 6, there was Elias, who was a young man who had typhoid and had multiple surgeries for his bowel, for intestinal perforation, and he was wasting away. I was able to give him some peanuts to eat, but that meant that Elias didn't have enough strength to lift up his hands to eat the peanuts. And so then I took it from the baggie, opened the baggie, and put it in his mouth. And Ezekiel did the same thing. So he was able to go to this man's bedside, a man who was clearly dying, and then take some peanuts and put it in his mouth, and then give him some water out of the lid of the bottle, because he didn't have the strength to do that. I hope that seeing things like that and meeting other people will give them a tenderness of heart that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. So, but that's something that I think God has to give them too. But at least we're able to give them opportunities, and they are in places where they can see and think outside and look outside of themselves. So. When we first came to Angola, someone was telling us about all of the people who had come and gone, now all of the missionaries, and how only the strong stay in Angola. And he was saying it as an encouragement, and we left the house thinking, yeah, yes, we feel really strong. And then slowly over the next few hours as we went home wondering, are we really strong enough to stay? Because we were having a really hard time. And then realizing, no, I mean, we really respect our friend and a fellow missionary, but we disagree with you. We're not here because we're strong enough. We're not here because we'll be able to do this task. We're just part of this bigger task, of this bigger work. And so in some ways, it's like God had prepared the work for us to do, and we were just people willing to come and do that work.
I feel that this is my response of gratitude to be in a place like this. And I think that that's what keeps me going, is I feel that there's something, even if I'm not seeing a good result, that there is a process in my life, and I am still working on things, and I am being worked on. And so as much as I am frustrated that I'm in a broken situation, or I'm dealing with other broken people, that I can be a part, I need to be here to be a part of the process of making things whole and renewing things. And I want to be a part of that.
We see a lot of death here, moms, babies, kids, men, women. This is still in some ways like a battlefront. We are apprentices in some ways to our Angolan colleagues who've been here longer. A lot of my colleagues, like Tia Julia, have been doing this for a long time in even more difficult situations, out in the bush, here at the hospital with less resources. Even though I'm taking care of other mothers and babies who are going through a lot and often lose their lives, I thank God that my children are still healthy, so I have not had yet, a stab in my own heart for a child that I've nursed. And so I'm not asking for that, but I think that's also helpful for me now as I walk in this through here, is that my children are still healthy, and I thank God for that.
I've had many times where I've wanted to quit and say, there's somewhere else that would appreciate my services, or I am not being used to the full potential that I can be here, or I'm just too tired, I'm exhausted. So there's been many moments with that. But it gets back to, well, what are we doing here in this world? Are we just going to quit and move on to everything, or do we stick out things? And is there something that can be said for persevering and learning, whether it's here in Kalukembe or in Philadelphia, and just learning to be a human being? I believe in the bigger picture, even if I'm not having the eyes to always see it or to catch the nuances, that there is a God who knows these things.
Will we ever complete our task here? I doubt it. I doubt we'll ever finish the work here, but the work isn't ours. And I think probably every other day still we think about calling it quits, or thinking, we can't keep on going like this. But I think that we love being able to work with our colleagues and our brothers and sisters here. There is so much work. There's so much work. And work is good. Work is good. I'm so glad that I get to work, that I have a body that's still healthy enough to work, and a mind that's able to let me work. It was so much fun being on the women's ward on Monday, seeing all of these women celebrating their successful surgeries.
I think one of the biggest blessings is just that we can be, as a family, living in a community, and getting to know our neighbors and being neighbors to our community has been a huge blessing for us. Being in a place where we are outsiders and seeking to be a part or of that community, I think it's a process, and I think that it's been a blessing, just that process. So as difficult as it has been at times, it's also a blessing that comes with a lot of joy for us. So besides having great views and, you know, cheap rent and exactly. And puppies and, you know, getting to eat our own chicken that we get to pet and coo over for a while. Those are things we can't do in Philly, so.
We have a close family life. We have work that we are able to do. We have our, food on the table. Jesus is giving us an opportunity to love others the way He has loved us. And He calls us to love others in so many different places. And for us, it's here in Kalukembe.
It's a very intense place. Much more so, I'm much more aware of my failings here than, say, my life in Philadelphia, where I feel that sometimes it's just so many comforts and easy things for me that I get, I wouldn't say apathetic, but I just get forgetful. And so here, I think that it's in my face more what are my failings and what are things that I need to work on, both with my kids and with my wife, but also at work with my colleagues, how I treat them, how I talk with them, how I can encourage them, and hopefully see change in them as well. To see that this hospital could be run with integrity. So that people are not trying to skim and take for what would be for themselves, but that they would be doing it for the betterment of the community. So if I were to see that, yeah, I think I could move on.
It's a beautiful place. We have so many amazing colleagues and amazing stories until we are called away or circumstances change where we have to prioritize children or health or whatever of our kids. I think we'll stick it out for now, but I don't think we'll finish the work here.